Well, a very good afternoon. There is breaking news from Manchester, and that is that Mohammed Fahir Amaaz, who is 20, has been found guilty at Liverpool Crown Court of assaulting 2 female police officers at Manchester Airport last July. The jury has been out for nearly 2 days. That verdict has come through. The guilty verdict has come through for Mohammed Fahir Amaaz, the 20-year-old who's been found guilty at Liverpool Crown Court of assaulting 2 female police officers at Manchester Airport last July. We're still waiting for the verdict in regard to his brother. We know that that has been an incredibly controversial incident. Now we have at least one guilty verdict. We'll see what happens in the other case. The jury of 12, one of them was excused because of a pre-existing holiday. We know as well that the judge earlier on today said that there were 11 jurors left, of course, and that he would take a majority verdict of 10, so 10 out of 11. We don't know how many of those people agreed that there should be a majority verdict, but the breaking news today, and Peter Bleksley is on his way into this studio in the next few minutes. Our crime commentator, former Metropolitan Police detective, will get his instant reaction to that. He's just getting a microphone put on him at this moment because he was due to be on with us a little bit later on, but we're of course bringing him right to the top of the programme because the breaking news today at 4:04 is that Mohammed Fahir Amaaz, who is 20, has been found guilty at Liverpool Crown Court of assaulting 2 female police officers at Manchester Airport last July. We remember that footage, shocking footage. There was a police officer who was accused, firstly, of kicking one of the accused in the head. We now know as well that, or we later knew because there was footage that emerged after that of the fact that, what Mohammed Fahir Amaaz has been convicted of, found guilty at Liverpool Crown Court of assaulting 2 female police officers. One of them had her nose broken. Well, Peter Bleksley is with me now. He is our crime commentator, former Metropolitan Police detective. Peter, thanks for coming in early on this. Tell me your instant reaction to the fact that one of these men, anyway, we don't know about the other verdict yet. It will come through presumably soon. But Mohammed Fahir Amaaz, the 20-year-old, has been found guilty of assaulting 2 female police officers at Manchester Airport.
Thus far, I am unashamedly delighted. Police officers in this country are assaulted in record numbers every day of the week. They need the protection of the courts. They need protection from their senior officers. They need protection from Parliament by ensuring that the right legislation with the right punishments is there to be handed down when people are arrested, charged and convicted like this man has been on 2 counts today.
I know we're going to stay on the right side of the law because the other verdict hasn't come through. The last thing we want to do is prejudice a trial. We want to be really careful here, and I know you will be, Peter, because this ain't your first rodeo. In terms of the public reaction to the fact that Mohammed Fahir Amaaz has been found guilty here, has been convicted, what will he perhaps look at for that assault conviction? Of course, it's up to the judge in terms of the sentencing in regard to that. And what do you think the public reaction will be?
I think the public overwhelmingly will share my standpoint, which is that we are very pleased that thus far 2 guilty verdicts have been returned. Clearly others to be considered and other verdicts to be returned. Let's rewind, if we may, to last year, to the 23rd of July, when there was a short snippet of video released and the nation, or many people, were outraged by what they saw. And then a few days later, actually, we saw a much longer clip of events.
We weren't given the full context, were we, originally?
We weren't. And this is really a lesson, I think, for everybody. And please forgive me, audience, if I sound a little bit preachy here. But when you see a snippet of particularly police behaviour, and I'm talking very much now in generic terms on social media, and people suddenly rush to judgment about it, I would always exercise caution about that, and I do, because it can sometimes be extremely helpful to know what happened throughout the entirety of an event. What was the background? Were any offences, for example, committed before that person came upon a situation whereby a police officer is engaging with a member of the public and they just started filming then? So they present only really a snapshot of a situation, not the full context, not the full explanation, not all of the evidence. So I would urge people in future, when they see that snippet of police action, and please don't think, and you and I'm sure your audience will appreciate, I never defend the indefensible.
Of course. And if someone was kicking someone in the head, that is something that cannot be condoned, nor would you ever condone that, Peter. And what we know, though, is that there is context to this. There was a fight in which Mohammed Fahir Amaaz was involved, and we know that he has been found guilty by at least 10 jurors, if not 11, at Liverpool Crown Court of assaulting 2 female police officers, one of whom had her nose broken.
Yes, and who knows, possible lifetime disfigurement, although I sincerely hope that in this day of advanced surgery, cosmetic surgery and the such like, that she may be able to be restored to her the previous way that she looked. But either way, a hugely distressing thing for anybody to be subjected to. In that particular example, a vicious, wicked, utterly unnecessary assault on a woman police officer, for which he has been rightfully convicted, and I make no bones about reiterating I am extremely pleased with these 2 verdicts.
Well, thank you, Peter, for that. We are awaiting the verdicts on other charges, and we're not going to speculate or talk about that in any way before that happens. We expect that will happen during the course of this programme. It may be tomorrow, but for now, the breaking news in the last 10 minutes is that Mohammed Fahir Amaaz, who is 20, has been found guilty at Liverpool Crown Court of assaulting 2 female police officers at Manchester Airport last July. We will, of course, bring you any further verdicts, any further news or updated lines on that as the programme goes on. Peter, we were due to speak to you a little bit later on. Thank you for coming directly into the studio. What we know as well is another bit of breaking news which is just coming through to us right now, that Palestine Action's co-founder Huda Amouri has lost a fresh bid for a temporary pause of the ban on the group as a terrorist organisation at the High Court. There's been action earlier on today saying they could bring that forward, but the co-founder Huda Amouri losing a fresh bid for a temporary pause of the ban on the group as a terrorist organisation at the High Court. I'm just getting a reaction to this. You're just hearing about this, Peter, but what is your instant reaction?
Our democratic parliament has spoken, and a couple of weeks ago they prescribed Palestine Action. In other words, they made it illegal to support that organisation, to be a member of it, or to in any way, shape or form promote its aims. And that was the voice of Parliament. They put it onto the statute book. It became law. Palestine Action have tried to challenge that today, and it would appear that this decision has gone against them. So it still remains the same. Support of Palestine Action in any way, shape or form is a criminal offence.
Let's talk about what we asked you to come on to talk about. I know that Heidi Alexander, the Transport Secretary, has been speaking to the media this morning on this story in regard to what Peter Kyle, the Technology Secretary, said yesterday in regard to Nigel Farage. He said that if you are against or question the Online Safety Act, that you're on the side of predators such as Jimmy Savile. This is what Heidi Alexander said earlier on today.
A situation where Nigel Farage and Reform are saying that they will repeal the Online Safety Act in its entirety. And I think Peter was rightly making the point that actually, you know, the likes of Jimmy Savile, when they were committing those heinous crimes decades ago, if social media had been around at that point in time, don't kid yourself, the likes of Jimmy Savile would have been online seeking to get access to children in the way that the Online Safety Act now is seeking to prevent. And so I think that was the point that Peter was making.
It's interesting as well that Nigel Farage spoke yesterday. He said that he thought this was completely unfair. He actually thought it was beneath and below the belt for Peter Kyle to say this. Peter Bleksley, what do you make of this row? Because the government is doubling down on this. Heidi Alexander there, the Transport Secretary, saying that Jimmy Savile would have targeted children online today, and to be against the Online Safety Act is to be on the side of the predators. What do you think?
This lamentable Labour government is just about the worst government I've ever experienced at its communications, and some other things. They repeatedly get it wrong, time after time after time. I don't know who advises them on their comms or what to say, But this showed a huge understanding, really, of the offending of Jimmy Savile. Because what they were saying was, if you stared into a crystal ball and he was still alive, for example, he would offend online. Jimmy Savile's offending, that vile, repulsive, predatory, repeat sex offender, got away with his crimes because he had access. He was granted access to children and to people with disabilities and people in hospitals and the deceased, of course. He had access, granted access on BBC premises, granted access in hospitals, in mortuaries and the such like. And predatory paedophiles, like the revolting Savile, are all about manoeuvring themselves into positions so that they can get access to people that they will then turn into victims. Now, if Savile were alive today, and let's all say hurrah because he's not, would he satisfy his paedophilic urges by sourcing content online? In other words, images of child sex abuse? Possibly, but Savile had so much access to real human beings that I think to use him as an example in this situation was really clumsy in the extreme, and to draw that comparison and lay that accusation at Nigel Farage's feet, I think, was a huge sign of dreadful communication judgment.
It's just cheap as well to simply say that you disagree with me, therefore you're like Jimmy Savile. It's a bit like people who say you disagree with me, therefore you're like the Nazis. I mean, it is just something that is so extreme. It's going to the extreme of an argument really quickly. It is losing the argument, I think, by saying that. And actually, there is a debate to be had about the Online Safety Act. A lot of people are dealing with the consequences of its implementation over the last few days. Quite a number of people who know very little about the law, who know very little about politics, are simply saying, right, well, there's certain things I can't see online. There are speeches by Conservative MPs on rape gangs, for example. Katie Lamb, the Shadow Home Office Minister, had a speech about that. That was blocked due to the Online Safety Act on Twitter and other platforms. There is a debate to be had. There is a conversation to be had. And in attempting to shut down that conversation and simply saying, well, if you disagree with this, you're like Jimmy Savile, well, that is a reductive argument. And it is, I think it's beneath someone like Peter Kyle, who I've interviewed before. He's an intelligent man. And to go to these extremes, I think, is actually really disappointing.
Yeah, it's poor in the extreme. And it's also very authoritarian to try and shut down debate about laws that have been passed in this country, which is, of course, supposed to be a flagship democracy with freedom of speech. Let me just mention, if I may, the Katie Lamb speech that she made in Parliament, which was extremely powerful, reached a huge audience, so many of whom absolutely chimed with every word she said. It is actually the social media platform X that have chosen to take that down because they harbour concerns that it may fall within the Online Safety Bill, and that element of the bill now, of course, it is down to Ofcom to enforce that. Now, knowing that I was coming on your show this afternoon, I decided to see how these changes had been made. So within the comfort of my home, I tried to access a porn site for research purposes only, I claim.
All right.
Right? Because I really wanted to know how this works, because all week I've been seeing people expressing their concerns about it, about the online bill, whereas I express concerns about children accessing pornography. That's my standpoint predominantly. So what I will say is, and this is one of the huge online pornography websites that I tried to access. Yes, there was a verification process that you had to go through in order to access the content. There were different ways that you could be verified. I chose the method which meant I had to enter my email address, and then it takes me to a third-party site. So not the pornography website, but another third party who have clearly been engaged by the pornography website to do the verification.
Okay.
Now that, for me, raises concerns. How secure is this third-party website who are now going to collect my data? Would they be subject to a hack, for example?
Yes.
Could people thereafter be blackmailed by hackers saying, we know you use this party for verification as you aimed to get onto a website, we're now going to blackmail you. So my concerns were around this third-party site into whom I had to put my details. I actually went down the credit card route. You can use that.
Okay.
You enter your credit card number and the number on the back of the card. Again, more security concerns, as you can imagine, that I've got. Are they secure? Is that data impenetrable?
Yeah.
Or will somebody be able to hack in and then come and blackmail me and or others?